I was alone in the woods scanning for wild boar with my thermal scope. When I spotted movement, I thought it was a bear, until it spoke in a woman's voice. That's when I realized it wasn't hunting me, it was luring me. I'm a hunter. I like to hunt wild boars specifically. Though I've been deer hunting and have been known to get a turkey for Thanksgiving, I mostly hunt boar. For those of you that don't know, boar are a big problem in the United States. A sow can have 2 litters a year, and it's not uncommon for a litter to consist of 10 or more pigs. Given that pigs eat anything and everything, it's not hard to see why the Department of Fish and Wildlife makes it legal to hunt them, with almost no restrictions. In my state, it's illegal to hunt most large mammals with night or thermal vision scopes, with the exception of boar and coyote. I've been saving for a year, mostly fun money. It's hard to explain to your wife that a scope that costs literally twice as much as the rifle you're mounting it on is worth it. But I did it. I took it to a range and sighted it in. There was an area peppered with boar activity that I knew would be perfect for a night hunt. It was easily accessible with my truck, with easy-to-find spots that overlooked a large, easy-to-navigate clearing. The night started uneventful, mostly me tinkering with my new toy, cycling through the settings. I was a little impatient. I'd spotted multiple deer, but they were out of season, and like I mentioned earlier, my current setup wasn't legal for deer. I moved to another spot I'd seen days earlier. It probably wasn't much better than my first, but it gave me something to do and a new angle to explore with my scope. After an hour or so of glassing the area, it dawned on me. This spot doesn't have much animal activity at all. No rabbits or owls. The deer I'd seen were hundreds of yards from where I was. Why was this pocket of land so dead at night, but lively during the day? I'd set up around 10 p.m. and it was about 2 a.m. when I started to think about packing up, maybe setting up a target before I left and taking some practice shots. I heard a crunch from the direction I'd come from before. I panned my scope over and saw the silhouette of a small bear pushing through the bushes. It's important to note my scope isn't exactly night vision. It's a thermal scope, kind of like a black and white version of what you see in the Predator movies. I adjusted my range and zoomed in a little. I remember jolting when I saw that it wasn't really a bear. It was a man. Because he was so low and hunched over, I thought I was looking at a young bear. Was that a game warden? It couldn't be. I would have seen the headlights coming up the road from where I was perched. And where could he have walked from? I was 30 miles away from anything and on public lands. I was about to call out when I adjusted my sights and noticed he was naked. No shoes, pants, or anything. I remember being disturbed by his movements, like a squirrel or something. Twitchy, grabbing at the foliage, sniffing around, and palming the tree. Was that my tree? The one I'd been leaning against earlier? The thought terrified me. Could he smell me? Then he did something I still have nightmares about today. He squatted and placed his hands in the dirt between his feet and stared straight up like a dog mid-howl. And I heard it. A voice from that direction. A very compelling female voice. "Help! I'm lost!" There was a long pause, but neither of us moved a muscle. The center of my sights was trained on the dirt in front of his feet. I couldn't bring myself to aim directly at another person. It went against everything I'd been taught about firearms. Were they lost? Was this some guy who had become unwell out here? Why was his voice so feminine? "Help! Please! I can't walk!" the voice called out. That's when I called bullcrap. Not only could he walk, but when I first saw him, he was traversing the land with ease for a naked person. So good I mistook him for a bear. That's a freaking trap. This guy is trying to lure me to him with a damsel in distress routine. Luckily, the lack of activity before had caused me to pack up most of my gear. I think I may have left behind a hat and a sitting pad, but I didn't give a crap at that moment. I took my eyes off him for a moment to get my pack on. I buckled my chest strap and scrambled for my rifle. To my horror, it was in the same position, but his face was staring in my direction. and I swear I saw a smile. The thermal scope has an effect that makes animals' eyes appear white. How the heck had he heard me get up and put my gear on? He must have easily been 150 yards away. "Back off!" I screamed in that direction. He stood upright, and it hit me how tall and skinny he was, easily 6 feet and very lean. He took a couple of long strides in my direction, and I instinctively sent around, sailing above his head into the tree line. He was freaky as heck, but he hadn't really threatened me. What would I tell the cops? I was unwilling and unready to shoot someone. He stopped dead in his tracks and hunched down on all fours. "The next one will mess you up. Go away." He stayed on all fours, and this time I had my sights trained on the center of him. His eyes were just above the grass like a large cat or something. I was trying to stop trembling, and I knew my voice had cracked a little on that last warning. I was terrified. That standoff probably only lasted a minute or two, maybe less, but it felt like forever. In an instant, he bolted left toward the tree line opposite the road. So much for not being able to walk. I could barely keep him in my scope. He was moving so fast. He disappeared into the brush, and I sent another bullet sailing high in his direction. I racked another round, tried to pocket that mag and swap for a fresh one, but I dropped it and didn't bother looking for it. I wasn't far from my truck, and I wanted to get out of there. I could hear him in the distance, yelling in this weird sound that could have been a laugh or a cry. I scrambled up the trail and arrived at my truck, breathless. I tossed my gear into the cab but kept the rifle in the passenger seat and sped off. For the longest time, I told that story from the perspective of having spotted some deranged substance user living off the land like some kind of caveman. I reported it to Fish and Game, but all they did was scold me for hunting at night alone. Never received an update. It wasn't until I told this story on a camping trip that my nephew told me about wendigos, rakes, and skinwalkers. My story scared the heck out of him because the spot we were camping was technically the same forest I'd seen the bastard, just 50 miles east of it. He was so spooked his mom, my cousin, had to take him home. She was really pissed. I'm not saying what I saw definitely was a wendigo or a skinwalker. I'm saying that if such a thing exists, I may have dodged quite the bullet that night. Or maybe it was just a tweaker doing a Donnie Thornberry impression in the middle of the night. A few years ago, I was renting a house in Northern California. The neighborhood was just outside the suburbs. It's that perfect balance of space and safety, with neighbors close enough not to feel isolated. There were no streetlights, so the nights got pitch black when the clouds rolled in. I didn't mind. Honestly, it made the place feel cozier. One night in midwinter, I got home from a long shift with a few hours of overtime. The sky was cloudy. The only light came from my headlights and the porch. As I stepped out of my car, I caught the scent of cigarette smoke. That was strange. I never smelled it around the house before. I looked around, saw nothing, and went inside. I was tired, more than usual, so I decided to take a quick shower and call it a night, even though it wasn't even 7 p.m. I woke up later, certain I'd heard something inside the house. At first I wasn't worried. A friend of mine used to stop by to use my shower on the way to his night classes. I'd even given him a spare key, but he always texted first. I hadn't heard my phone. Still groggy, I reached over to check my cell. The screen lit up so bright it nearly blinded me. This was before phones had automatic dimming. It was around 9-something, but I couldn't tell if I had any messages. I set my phone down and called out his name. Silence. Then footsteps. Heavy ones, fast, racing across the first floor. I jumped out of bed and ran for the closet. By the time I got the door open, they were already on the stairs. There were 3 rooms upstairs, my bedroom, a spare, and the bathroom at the end of the hallway. All the doors were closed except the bathroom's, which was slightly ajar. I heard them run past my room and into the bathroom. Thank God. That bought me just enough time to reach the attic access in my closet ceiling and hoist myself up. I had just started to pull myself in when they ran out of the bathroom. My feet were barely inside the attic when my bedroom door slammed open. They stepped into the room, didn't see me, ran out, went into the spare room, then back into mine, and turned on the light. A moment later, the closet door was yanked open. I crouched silently in the attic, just a foot from the access. From my angle, I could only see their legs, dirty jeans with frayed cuffs and worn work boots. They stood there for a moment, then stepped back. A loud crash shook the floor, followed by a scream of pure rage. That scream, it reminded me too much of my stepfather, the way he'd lose control before he was eventually committed for severe mental health issues. The intruders stormed down the stairs, slamming into furniture and knocking things over. I stayed still, silent in the dark. I left my cell on the nightstand and didn't dare climb down. Not yet. Eventually, the noise stopped. I started counting, slowly, all the way up to 1,000. Only then did I climb down. The first thing I noticed was the bed. It was flipped over, probably the crash I heard. He must have been searching for me. My phone was nowhere to be found, so I grabbed the landline next to the bed and called the police. They arrived quickly and cleared the house. The first floor was wrecked. Chairs were knocked over and the couch was flipped. Books, pictures, everything from the shelves were thrown to the floor. Kitchen cabinets were wide open. Cans and boxes were tossed everywhere. But only one thing was missing: a kitchen knife from the block. Police searched the property. They found the side door had been forced open, likely with a crowbar. Along the fence, they discovered cigarette butts, some foil, and an empty pen tube. They said that combination is sometimes used for illicit substance use, and that he'd probably been watching the house for a while. That cigarette smoke I smelled when I got home, he was out there. They took the evidence and told me I should stay with family or friends that night. Instead, I stayed awake. I dragged a heavy shelf in front of the broken door and cleaned up what I could. Every so often, I'd shine a flashlight across the yard right where they found the butts and foil, but I never saw anything. The next day, I had the door replaced and motion lights installed on all sides of the house. I ran a landline up into the attic just in case. Nothing else ever happened there. I lived in that house for another 3 years without incident, but I never let my guard down again. To this day, I still practice moving from my bed to the attic quickly and quietly. Even after I moved, I replaced the attic drill with a crawl space behind the closet. I try not to think about what would have happened if I had moved a little slower, or if he'd chosen my room first. I hope you're enjoying this story so far. If you've got one of your own, I'd love to hear it. Whether it's strange, paranormal, or just plain disturbing. Drop it in the comments or email me at MrLiminalStories@gmail.com. Right now, with the channel still growing, yours is likely to get featured. In 2010, I was driving from New Orleans, Louisiana to Eugene, Oregon. It was just me, 24, female, and my 2-year-old pit bull in a 14-foot U-Haul truck with everything I owned crammed into the back, a fancy flip phone, and my printout of MapQuest directions. I think the first smartphones actually came out around that time, but I didn't have one. Cell phone service was also much spottier, and there were long stretches through the desert where I had zero service for hundreds of miles. I was driving a lonely stretch of highway through central Texas when I realized I hadn't seen a town or exit for a very long time, and my giant U-Haul was really low on gas. Just when I'm starting to freak out and seriously run out of gas, I see a small town coming up. I pull into this town, and it is tiny. I was so worried about other things that I never did pay attention to the name of the town, but there were only about 6 streets in the whole place. I gas up and I'm ready to go back on the road. Except I cannot for the life of me find my way back to the highway. I circle the town about 4 times and start getting so frustrated because this is such a tiny town. How the heck can I not find my way out? I can literally see the highway but can't get to it. I returned to the gas station to ask for directions. Now, when I got gas, I paid at the pump and never went in. When I enter for directions, there's a skinny, nondescript guy with black hair hanging down in front of his eyes that looks like it could use a good wash. He's not particularly creepy, but a little rude. He never really met my eyes. He was looking down at a magazine. He gives me directions that don't sound right at all. He's telling me to take a road that'll get me to the highway in about 17 miles. For a moment, I am dumbfounded. Then I point out that I didn't drive that far to get from the highway into town. Why so far to get back to the highway? I can literally see it from the town. He's so casual, almost like I'm just an annoyance and can follow his directions or not. Why should he care? He gives me some explanation about the road curving around that doesn't really make sense. He still doesn't look at me. Just whatever. I gave you your directions and waved his hand in the direction of the door. When I got into the parking lot, my whole body started trembling violently and my heart started racing, seemingly for no reason. I got into the truck and as soon as I put the key into the ignition, I burst into tears. I had the most terrible feeling that no matter how nonchalant he acted, this man had bad intentions. I didn't know what, but I knew right then and there that there was no way I was going to follow his directions. Yet this was the only store in this little town, and short of knocking on doors, no thank you, there was no one else to ask for directions. I decided I didn't give a crap if this town seemed like something dropped out of the Twilight Zone. I was going to drive around until I found my way out, even if it took all damn night. Then, a big red beater of a pickup truck, as much rust as metal, pulls up and disgorges the quintessential Texan man. Huge, husky, and in flannel and work boots. Without even thinking about it, I jumped out of the truck and approached him quickly yet warily. Looking into his eyes, I saw a kind human being. Or at least I was hoping I did. I asked him if he could please give me directions to the highway. I told him I knew it was silly, but I just couldn't seem to find my way back. He looked concerned as I was visibly upset, so he made me laugh and very cheerfully gave me directions for a hairpin curved turnoff right at the end of a small concrete tunnel I had passed several times. He said it often confused travelers because it was so hard to see. They needed to put up signs, etc. With a sinking feeling in my stomach, I asked him how far in miles was it back to the highway. He laughed and gave me a funny look. "Miles, miss? I'd say it's a quarter mile at most. You can see the highway right from here." At this point, I couldn't help it. I had to know. "What happens if I drive?" And I gave him the directions the man in the store had given me. Texas looked at me very intently and asked me how I knew about that route. It was pretty far out and usually only locals know about it. So I told him. He was quiet for a few minutes and then asked what the attendant looked like and if I had a map of the state. Nope, just my MapQuest, which wasn't helpful in this situation. He goes to his truck and grabs a raggedy local map from his glove box, spreading it out for me. He traces the route I describe. The way the man from the gas station had told me to go led away from town, away from the interstate, and led to seemingly the middle of nowhere. Texas told me that the road did go about 17 miles, right before it dead-ended in the desert. I asked him what was out there, and he told me that it was nothing but some junk cars and a few trailers and mobile homes, all owned by the same family. This family was known locally as troublemakers, substance users, and alcoholics, and these were the nice things townspeople had to say about them. And the erstwhile clerk was part of this family and lived down the road. I'll never forget the look in Texas's eyes as he told me this. He also told me that I was smart to listen to my instincts and warned me to be careful traveling out there. I don't know if the man from the gas station wanted what was in the back of my U-Haul or who was in the driver's seat, but I didn't have to find out.